Welcome back to Photocon Hawaii Virtual. It's been an exciting day so far. I hope all of you have been enjoying yourselves on the recent workshops. We've got a lot more in store for you today and then tomorrow as well. If you haven't registered for any of the other workshops that we have ready for you, please go online. You can register at any time and join us. Today we have a Sony ambassador, Stan Moniz, a phenomenal photographer, just a great guy. He's got the ability to shoot not only in the surf and get great stuff there, but also stars and astrophotography is incredible. So with that, I'd like to bring you Stan Moniz. Stan, if you're there, come and join us, man. Hello, Stan. Hey, Stan.
What's up, brother?
Hey, nice to see you. How's it going?
I'm good, man. Just did some storm chasing this morning.
Oh, yeah? Did you get anything good?
I think so. I got to check out my SD cards.
Yeah, I hope they dry. When you go,
I've been up since 4 a.m. We had our first winter storm come in, and we had some killer rainbows, thunder, lightning. It was pretty awesome.
Stan,
yeah, it was pretty awesome.
When you go out there, what kind of gear are you packing?
You know what? It's right here. I got my A7S III. This is the latest and greatest of Sony.
Yeah, fantastic.
Basically hybrid camera, great video and photo camera. And then my backup camera right now is my A7C. And I usually bring like the Holy Trinity, you know, like 16-35, 7200, 1-4. So my back is hurting right now.
Hey, but let me ask you, when you go out and you know you're going into the storm, are you taking any weatherproofing or anything for your gear?
Yeah. Actually, Aquatech makes a weather shield. It's called a weather shield.
Mm-hmm.
So I have that attaches to the front of the lens.
Yeah.
And these Sony cameras are so weather sealed, man. They're so great, you know, especially the G Master series. So I don't got to really worry about it. You know, I get a lot of the weather on me. So you just got to try and stay in front of the rain. So I have all these apps.
Yeah.
You know, I can dictate where all the weather's coming through, and so it's pretty cool.
You trust them?
I do, man. I do. Yeah, we're actually I'm gonna actually show kind of, you know, a few apps that I use for astrophotography and just surf in general. You know, basic stuff and probably some stuff that people don't know about.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Stan, we're really happy to have you here back in Hawaii again. You're a local boy, aren't you?
Yes, born and raised on the island, man. I was born and raised in Makakilo.
Yeah.
And then my mom, not to make this a sad story, but my mom and my dad separated, and I moved to Wailua. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of where, you know, my bodyboarding took off. I became a professional bodyboarder, and my love for the stars kind of grew with that. You know, my mom was really big into the stars, and, you know, on kind of Point Side, that's the darkest side of the island, kind of, right?
Yeah.
So my mom would always take me down there. You know, it's just surfing stars, man, and it kind of, that's like my inspiration for photography. Yeah.
That's really a magnificent area, isn't it? Of all the places, it's still wild to this day. You know, it's so
awesome to go back home, dude. I can't wait. I mean, hopefully things will start to get better, and I can come back out there and enjoy some time with my friends out there and have some workshops, you know, out there with the boys. And it's always good times, man. I miss it.
Yeah, I miss it. Well, it's really nice of you to be with us. Thanks to Sony for having you here. It's fantastic. Look, I know we've got a couple of little things that we want to present, and I know you would like to present some stills and videos. Let's see how we can do under the circumstances. We'll, you know, I know you're a winger too, right? So I'm one too. Let's do what we can. We've got a good team here trying to help us to get everything to work really well. Stan, I'll leave it to you, and I'll just see you towards the end of your workshop. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. All right, so let me get this presentation out. All right, guys, so me and Rick tried to work this out, but there was supposed to be an edit portion, which was probably the biggest portion of this presentation, but it's not working. But we're gonna kind of go through this, and you know, it's gonna be fun either way. So when it says take it to edit, that was supposed to be the Lightroom editing section of the presentation, but I apologize for whatever reason it's not working. But we're gonna have fun anyway. So yeah, like you know, Rick did the intro. basically the presentation is creative ocean and night sky photography with the A7S III. And the reason why I'm kind of like talking about this camera is because, I mean, I finally feel like Sony has hit it home, at least for me, in my opinion. You know, I am a hybrid shooter. I'm a photographer and filmmaker. We're going to kind of go through slides here. And, you know, I've been kind of waiting for that perfect camera because a lot of work I do is action and adventure based with an emphasis on ocean and astrophotography. That's my favorite stuff. And having the A7S camera is such a killer camera, especially with now it's shooting in 10-bit video, you know, 4K, 24, 60, all the way up to 120 in 10-bit. I don't know if you guys know, geek out on the video side of it, but you know, 8-bit, you got 256 shades of color, and 10-bit, you have 1024. So the color grading possibilities are endless. So, you know, just the work I can do for my clients, I have, you know, I can shoot stills and images on the same camera and go home with confidence that, you know, this is, you know, they're going to be stoked if it's a project for a client or for personal use. You know, it's awesome. So yeah, like I was saying, I'm you know, an action adventure photographer, filmmaker. I would say I'm a nature journalist in a way. I'm always chasing nature, anything that's happening. Like I just was chasing, you know, storms this morning. And as you can see here, this background image is Zion National Park, the backcountry. It took me it's a 10-mile hike to this point that I've been kind of surveying for a long time and found, you know, this, it's just amazing. The fall colors are just going off. And then to your bottom left, you can see me. This is a big day in the Laguna. That's with my Aquatech housing with the A7S III in the Elite A7 Series 2 housing. And I am a part of the Sony Alpha Collective. I'm very proud to be a part of it. There ain't too many of us out there. I'm kind of an OG. I don't even remember when it started, maybe 7 or 8 years ago. They asked me to come in, and I was on board. I've been a Sony shooter from the day I picked up a camera. Just a little touch on my inspirations. I am from Hawaii, and you know, I grew up in the islands, and it was all about surf and the stars. I can remember, you know, pulling inspiration from the stars was from my mom. Actually, I remember, I think it was in 1986. If anyone is as old as me, I'm like 46 years old. I was probably 12 years old. My mom, we were pretty broke. She bought a cheap telescope and pulled me out of bed. And you know how in Hawaii they call you Stanley boy, or, you know, it's boy or girl. She's like, Stanley boy, get up. We gotta check this out. I'm kicking on screaming. Went up to top of Makakilo Hill. Back in the day, there was no light pollution. Set up the telescope, Halley's Comet. She, you know, I lost it. I fell in love with astrophotography. So that's that one whole side of me, you know, on the astro side. My mom really brought me into that. And on the ocean side, you know, surf side, I pulled my inspiration from my bodyboarding years. I became a professional bodyboarder, and I went on these really awesome trips around the world with, you know, badasses, you know, like Brian Billman, Tom Hanks, Tom Boyle, Russell Hoover. And these guys would teach me things here and there. You know, I don't think they would even know, but I was just kind of over their shoulder, like, you know, what was your shutter priority on that? You know, and this and that. So many moons later, I moved to California in 2002 with my band National Product. I was also a musician myself, and we did pretty good. And then after that kind of slowed down, I picked up a camera and went straight into the surf, and you know, the rest is history, man. The rest is history. So these are just a few images. This is all shot with the A7S III. The two on the left is just showing you the diversity that you can do in the water. The one top left is just shot like literally a couple of weeks ago. We had crazy Santa Ana winds. I don't know if you heard about the crazy fires that we had in California. The offshore winds are insane. And just to kind of go over the settings, to stop a wave, you know, in its tracks, my shutter is at 1,000 minimum. So that was shot at 1,000 at probably like 400 ISO. The bottom, we're going to get into the flash photography part. So this is where you can get really creative with the Lux, the brand new Lux Flash. This thing is awesome right here. Check this out. This is awesome with the housing. So, and then of course to the right, it's my favorite location to shoot the stars, Joshua Tree National Park. So after my, my surf photography kind of took off for a while, I started getting editorial photos here and there. And then I started thinking about my mom again, and knowing that, I had this something in me yearning to get back out there and just, be out there in nature, in a dark sky. And I think it had a lot to do with, it was like a place where I could go to talk to my mom. I think everybody has a story like that. And I knew Joshua Tree about 10 years ago. I knew Joshua Tree National Park was one of the darkest places, in California, and it was only 2 hours away from me. So I went out there, and everybody thought I was nuts because, I started drifting away from the ocean and started getting into desert photography and night sky stuff. Everybody thought I was nuts, but I fell in love with it, and it became a part of my photography career. And eventually, I started having workshops out there, which is super, super awesome. And, now I take groups out there every single month. I'm actually a certified guide in Joshua Tree National Park. There's not too many of us out there. And here's a picture right here of my group, my July group with Comet Neowise. This was amazing. Like I said earlier, I seen the Halley's Comet in 1986. And having seen this comet really brought me right back to being 12 years old again. There was my first workshop. I was actually tearing up, and there was a couple other emotional people in the group, and started like, it just, because I told them why I was, tearing up and stuff. I'm kind of tearing up now and getting chicken skin, but I was thinking about my mom, and it's just such a precious moment in time to share these firsts with everybody. They never seen the night sky, or didn't know how to photograph the night sky, and they're getting the comet as well. And Robert just joined. Yes.
Finally, man.
Yes.
This is a marathon.
My man is back. Right now. Well, hopefully I don't sound like a dummy right now. I have some company now. This is Robert. You wanna introduce yourself?
So I'm Rob with the Sony Pro Support team. I manage the Southwest, which does include Hawaii. And I've been down there for that event, a couple of times. So this is definitely our first virtual, which is why I'm here 23 minutes late. A couple of technical issues, but I'm the tech guy, former photographer, man. All that stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, Rob is the man. This guy, shoot. Any question I throw at him, he's got it covered. I'm glad this guy is here. I might know 10% of the tech side. He knows the rest.
I know the 90.
Yeah. Yes, you do, man. That's why we make a great team. So yeah, I was just talking about the workshop stuff. So yeah, guys, like, if you're interested, if you live out in the California area, you're gonna visit the mainland and want to hang out, let me know. I have workshops every month. I have even a couple coming up in Death Valley. So yeah, it's just a really cool. I'm just happy to be a photographer and happy to be with Team Sony, and it's a beautiful thing. It's I'm really happy with the direction I'm going with Ocean and Astro. So let's get into creative star photography. We cannot do editing because we just can't. So I'm just gonna wing what we can do here. So I like to kind of push the envelope on stuff, and then Rob's been with me in a few shoots, and I love doing star trails. And I know this is, if you guys, a lot of you guys, might know or might not know, but the core of the Milky Way is slowly setting into the west, and that's kind of like the main thing you see, when you look at astrophotos on Instagram or Facebook and stuff like that. So it's kind of time to like focus in a different direction. And I've always been a person to try and push the envelope with star trail photography, being if there was no moon, 50% moon, 100% moon, I try to get creative with these shots. So because we can't edit, I'm just going to explain the shots we got here, and then what I can bring to the table. Maybe you guys can take you take back with you and run with it. You know, because that's the one thing I love about creating and sharing is that you can take, you know, a little bit, you know, bits and pieces from everybody. And then, you know, photography is art. There's no rule to it. You know, rules are meant to be broken, right, Rob?
Always.
So yeah, so let's take this first image to the left, this really nice green. That's actually air glow. This is Joshua Tree National Park. All of these are taken in Joshua Tree National Park. I don't have the settings here because we were going to edit these. But this is actually a stack of images, 256 images. I stacked it in a program called Star Stack. I don't know if you guys follow me on Instagram. If you don't, you know, would be awesome if you did. I do a lot of Star Trail time lapse, and I absolutely love it because you can get so damn creative with this stuff. It takes a lot of time, but you can. So this is basically a stacked image. That's why you get that really cool comment effect. You know, it's kind of turning. And then I can also turn that into a time lapse as well. So the one to the top right is actually Arch Rock. And that is actually shot, believe it or not, at f11 at 100 ISO at 40 minutes under the full moon. So this shot right here is extremely clean, especially with the A7S III. I mean that camera, you know, Rob can probably explain better than me. The dynamic range on that camera is insane. It's probably one of the cleanest, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like this big,
bigger,
big,
yeah,
or that.
You'd have to back up a long ways. Show the big.
Yeah. You want to explain a dynamic range? You just want me to roll with it?
Dynamic is pretty simple. It's basically how much highlight and how much shadow can a camera see. Up until a few years ago, cameras were only seeing maybe about 8 stops of dynamic range. And when all of the technology really started to move to cram more megapixels onto image sensors, there was a huge need to start redesigning the image sensors. And with those redesigns, number one, the concern was ISO. And with the changes that started happening with sensitivity, dynamic range started happening, and we went from 8 stops to 10 stops to 12 stops.
Yep.
And right now, around 15 stops of latitude. But there's a lot of re-engineering of the sensors and the image processors that come together to help with that.
Yeah, because I even noticed, Rob, like the first A7R, like in high ISO was kind of not good.
It was horrible.
Yeah,
you don't have to.
It was
horrible. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to make light about it, but yeah, I mean, I'm fact. I'll tell it how it is. I had to stack images to make it really clean, but now, you know what I mean? I mean, I barely even stack images anymore, especially with the A7S III. So the last image with this Joshua tree, that is actually at f4. This is all manual, by the way. F4. I call this the 4-on-4, and I'll explain why. It's f4, 400 ISO at 40 minutes. So it's kind of a lame name, but it's 4-on-4. And I came up with this idea, and the reason why you're like, why 40 minutes, right? If you have a new moon, you can pretty much go as long as you want. But I would always shoot these 40-minute exposures with the noise reduction on as the last shot of the night, because what I would do is I would start to figure out that, 40 minutes is about the right time that, you know, a star trail image looks like a star trail image. You know what I mean, Rob? So like, in my opinion, you know what I mean? Some people might differ from that, but you know, I would have noise reduction on. Oh, we could talk about noise reduction really quick too, Rob. So I would have it on a shutter release cable, bulb mode, and a timer. And once that 40 would, you know, go by, I would, you know, release the bulb, and it would go into noise reduction. I would throw it on my passenger seat and take off back home, and then I would hear that click, and that's when the noise reduction was, you know, done. And then I would pull over safely and look at the photo. So just to kind of give you an explanation why I use noise reduction is that, especially in a hot climate, like if you have heat shimmer, or say like you shot it, you know, a lot of this, I do this in the winter. Atmosphere is more cool, so the sensor is cooler, right, Rob? Because it's obviously the camera's colder. So if you shoot it like in Death Valley or in Joshua Tree in a dead of summer without noise reduction, game over. Because when you look at that photo, you're gonna have tons of hot pixels. So I think Rob would be the best man to explain what noise reduction is in like a general sense. You know what I mean? You did this before.
Yeah,
with
you know,
me.
and it's hard to really get into not to get into the weeds on this, but basically what it's doing is it's looking for channels. It's looking for red color channels. It's looking for blue. And it's going to go ahead, isolate those, look at the other light that's around it. So like if you're shooting stars, it's going to compare this red pixel that got hot to this one over here that's, yellow or, star color. And then it's going to start mapping. It's going to use a dark frame to go ahead and then start superimposing the two together and then getting rid of the red and the blue. But when it does that, though, part of the problem is that it also kind of smudges everything up a little bit. So anytime that you could use a system with minimal noise reduction, it's going to be a lot better to do that.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I love it, man. It makes a big difference, you know what I mean? And yeah, so there you have it. If you guys wanted to know what noise reduction kind of really does, that's Rob's the guy to give you the proper answer. Let's move along
Stan,
here.
actually, back up just one. Cora down here is asking something pertaining to the top right photo. How long, or wait a minute, the exposure for the top left and the top right, how long were those two on the exposures?
So top right was 40 minutes, okay? This is one single image. The top right and the bottom right is one single image in shutter release, in bulb mode. The one to the left is that one I was telling you about that was stacked. So basically this shot was probably, I shot this with the 24G Master. I shot this at 15 seconds, 6400 ISO at f2.8 at incandescent. That's kind of my go-to. But that image was stacked. So I take all these images, stack them together to make a star trail in that program called Star Stack. Hopefully that answers your question.
And so for everybody else that's writing questions, I'm watching those. If something has to do with something that is happening right now and about to go away, we'll get to it. Otherwise, all the other ones, we'll get it towards the end here. So, yeah. Got
it. Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about planned capture. And like I said earlier, we can't do the edit in Lightroom and Photoshop. I wish we could. Oh, that would have been the juicy part. So we're going to actually talk about this image to the left here. This image right here to the left was shot on the A7S III with the full moon out, basically. And it was shot at f11 at 100 ISO at 40 minutes with noise reduction on. And this area in Laguna Beach, you get a lot of light pollution. And I've always wanted to get Orion. That's Orion right there. It's a long exposure, of course. But it's, sitting right above those palm trees. And following these apps that I'm going to show you help me really plan out this shoot. Like I use these apps all the time, and I didn't want to get too geeky today, but there's a ton I use. But just for, I wanted to show you guys the stuff that I use for this particular photo. So this is the fun stuff. So let's just talk about pre-planning the essentials. Okay, everybody is probably pretty familiar with WeatherBug. I don't know, Rob. I don't know if you're familiar with WeatherBug.
I live in San Diego. It's always clear. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Dude, right now there's the most epic storm coming in. I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning chasing everything. But yeah, San Diego's sick. But WeatherBug, I can honestly say I really trust this app like big time. It's free. It sucks because there's a bunch of like ads. But if you go to a place, pre-planning has a lot to do with, your emotional connection with a spot and how accurate, you can say, hey, this app is really on it. You know what I mean? Because there's other apps that would go to Joshua Tree and you'll say, clear skies. No, and it wasn't. You know what I mean? But I really trust WeatherBug for a few particular spots. Laguna Beach, in my zone, Laguna Beach, Death Valley, Borrego, Joshua Tree. It's dead on, So this is actually that same morning I shot. All this is shot in the same morning. At 3:32 in the morning, I woke up and I knew it was going to be clear because it actually gives you a 7-day prediction, and which is pretty darn accurate. And it even predicted thunder and lightning today in Laguna Beach 3 days ago, and it happened. So I mean, it's crazy how good it is. So your next one is Surfline and Stellarium. So let's go into Surfline right now. That's kind of a no-brainer, right? especially for Hawaii folks, I mean, Surfline, you got to have Surfline. But the reason why I mentioned Surfline is for seascape astrophotography use. Because a lot of times when you're on the reef, can be in Hawaii, can be in California, and anywhere in the world, tide is huge. I've got, you know, pretty destroyed a couple of times going out there, just willy-nilly with my headlamp going, the tide's probably going down. Nope, it's going up. So like I knew, like if you can look to your bottom right, it shows the surf, the tide, 2.3. And I knew that, you know, I was going to shoot this image between 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock a.m. High tide was at 7:30 at 2.3 feet. The waves weren't that big. It was not a problem, you know? So these can come in very helpful. So then there is Stellarium. So we have to go back in here. I'm going to show you this really quick. I got to find this video. There it is right here. So as you can see to the right, you can actually, Stellarium is like $5. There's a different plans, but you can actually fast forward, you know, through time and see where, you know, where these constellations are. Let's just play this one again. And you can see, it says Laguna Beach right now. And I shot, this is in real time at 4:16 in the morning. That was where Orion was, right above those trees. I held it right above the trees, and I could read what time, you know, Orion was going to rise right above the trees. And not only is it good for that moment, you could predict the future. You know what I mean, Rob? Mm-hmm. Like you could go somewhere, anywhere in the world and be like, okay, I want to know when the Milky Way core is going to be over this arch in Utah,
it's huge.
Or in Iceland.
You know, I'm back in when I was like young and like starting to shoot on film, you had to camp out and you had to sit there, you know, and so this stuff makes it so much easier. You know, when you need to start traveling, you know, when you can get there, if it takes you half an hour to set up,
yeah,
you know, it's great to just be able to plan out, because right now content is everywhere and it really helps you get know, that great content and the great timing. It's everything.
It's so awesome. And then there's other apps like Photo Pills, you know, and Photographer's Empress. I can go on and on, but these are the ones that I kind of like. This one says, do you use Photo Pills? Yes, I do. 100%. We just talked about that. And I didn't want to get into that because it could take up too much time. And I know how I am. I'm Portuguese, so I like to talk. So Hawaiians know all about that. But yeah, I mean, those are kind of like the main ones I use, Rob, and people out there. So yeah, definitely, you know, put some time into these apps because it's super helpful, super helpful. So let's just talk about Star Trail photography. The gear for that shot was the E7S3, the 16-35 f2.8. The 16-35, a lot of people always ask me this on Instagram, like, what lens should I get? You know what I mean? And I kind of get, you know, if you only had a certain amount of money, like a budget, I would probably say get the 16-35 only because it's just more versatile, right, Rob? You can do more with it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm a big fan of primes, dude, but I just recently got into like, you know, the zooms. You know what I mean? Because my backpack, it just gets way too damn heavy with all these primes. And then I got to clean my sensor all the time. I'm like, dude, I'm on Amazon buying sensor swabs every freaking 2 weeks. You know, like I should get a sensor swab sponsored. Yeah. But yeah, it's just better. Sometimes it's better to, you know, spend a little bit more, get the G Master series.
Actually, Stan, I want to point out one thing though about that 16-35. A lot of people, you know, will go with the wide angle, but one thing I got to really say before you jump into the wide angle is on a lens like a 12-24, that lens can't take a filter. So, you know, taking a lens like a 16-35, that's a huge reason to choose that lens versus a lens that has that domed out front. You can't filter a 12-24 unless you get like the huge contraption to go onto it.
And you want to talk about filters, Rob, dude. You know me, I'm a filter geek. We just went on a recent shoot, and this is all my stuff. I mean, it's just packed. That's the reason why I don't have the 12-24, because I know you can use them in the back, and then a couple of people are making a big front end. I can't deal with that, man. And the 12-24 is amazing, but I need to be able to use filters 100%, because I use that lens in the water and for video. You know, video is a big part of my, you know, just art 100%. So I have, a couple tripods I use. Typically, I take out my Slick CF. It's a carbon fiber 635 tripod, or the newest one that came out. It's called the Very 704 tripod. I love the Acrotech GXP ball head. That thing has been through everything, and it's just rock solid. It's very pricey, but rock solid. And then Hoya Starscape filter, aka the intensifier. We're gonna spend a little bit of time on this one, Rob. We probably talked about this a couple of times, but that is my go-to filter for astrophotography. And of course, you need a shutter release cable, as you can see in that picture below. So let's move along. So let's talk about the Starscape filter, aka the intensifier. It was called the intensifier, and they switched it, the branding, to Starscape filter, because it got so famous for astrophotography. It was actually made for fall colors, for fall foliage, right? It's a Dinium filter basically, and it basically, it increases warm tones, but leaves the cool tones alone. So I kind of geeked out and wrote some stuff that I thought was kind of interesting with this. And what happens is that the astro guys, the astrophotographers, started figuring out that, or the community figured out that this actually reduces a ton of light pollution, big time. It's once I used it, you just can't go back. The only time I never use it is when I'm in a position where I'm in some place that there is no light pollution. You know what I mean? Like somewhere like Bryce Canyon, or way far away from lights, like hundreds of miles away, because you can always see, if there's a city far off, like 200 miles away, you can see on the horizon some of that light pollution. So this I'll just read over this right here. So the benefits for using this filter stops specific areas of the color spectrum from passing through. As you can see to the right, you can see the spikes. The spectrum, like the yellow and the orange, these are spectrum associated to sodium vapor lights and mercury vapor lights, okay? So it focuses on the areas associated with sodium vapor and mercury vapor. These colors are orange, yellow, and are emitted by street lamps and city lights. Until the lights, until people change everything to, get rid of that, then we're still going to have the issue. It just makes the end result it's a cleaner image when you post. And I mentioned this before, warm tones are enhanced while cool tones are left alone. Perfect for fall colors. We had a beautiful fall color changing of the season this last month in Mammoth. I had that intensifier on. So I kind of call it the twofer, because you can use it for, fall colors, and you can use it for, reducing light pollution, period. And if you guys are interested, I have a code. It is Moniz 15. So you get 15% off on the Hoya USA site. If you just visit my website and you go to my gear, you can find it there. So note, everybody always asks me about this. It does have a base filter factor of a half a stop. So it's going to drop, your exposure a tiny bit. But like I said, with these Sony cameras, that ain't no big deal, dude.
Stan,
you know what I mean?
Question on that filter. Have you used it with any LED lights around?
I have, and you gotta change the color temperature. Mm-hmm. It all depends. I'm a fan of the cooler tone, like the incandescent. So if you have like an LED around, and you're lighting a Joshua tree, you have to change that to warm, because you always got to kind of match your tones, because you're putting like a blue filter in front of glass, right? So you have to think about that. That's a question. We're kind of jumping the gun. I was going to get to that, but I'm kind of glad to answer that, because for a lot. Oh, remember, Rob? We did this. We were out in Hawaii many years ago at a workshop, and I had the filter on, and I said, make sure you guys switch it to warm tone. And you're like, why? I'm like, because your image is going to be too blue, So I always tell people that if you guys are going to use a Starscape filter intensifier, I would suggest you guys set your color balance to daylight. So unless you like that really blue look. So here is an example. This is Crescent Bay. To the left is without the filter. To the right is with the filter. You see the difference? How it reduced a lot of the orange, yellow, or the brown, like in the water and the sky. It's very useful. So that's kind of like a left and right. This is totally raw. This is, like I said, before and after. And this is just a simple edit. So it just makes editing way easier, 100%. So, okay, so this is another video. We're going to talk about focusing really quick. So let's get into that. Well, before I jump into the video, let's just go over these main points. So with the A7S III camera, it is probably by far the easiest camera ever created to shoot stars with. I mean, you look through the viewfinder, because it's 12 megapixels and the pixels are much larger, right, Rob?
Huge.
They're huge. It just sucks in all that starlight. So what I'm about to tell you, you don't really need to do this, but you can easily grab perfect focus with the A7S III. That's the reason why I love it so much, you know? So before I get into the video, I'm going to go over these points right here. So, and you're going to see it in the video. So, everybody always asks me about focus peaking. So I set focus peaking to medium and color red. This pertains to the Sony cameras. I would think Canon and Nikon, the other ones probably have something like that, Rob, where there's like a peaking color.
Well, it depends on how old it is, but yeah, a lot of them do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So basically what that peaking does is, if you set it to red and you focus on the star, right, you're gonna see these pinpoints. All the stars are gonna be pinpoints, like red in the viewfinder. So sometimes I use video mode to focus on stars we're gonna get to. And because you can, I set the ISO to 80,000, right? And I rack the focus ring slowly until you see the faintest stars twinkling. And then once I get that, I'll tape it down. So let's go find that video here. Find focus video, there you go. So if you look to your left, this is Orion that night, Rob, and guys out there, you see that? So this is in video mode at 80,000 ISO. So right there, as you can see the faintest stars twinkling in the background, that's how you know you have achieved perfect focus. And it's one of those things. And so we're going to get into bright monitoring to compose in the dark. And Rob, we can explain this after. So bright monitoring is kind of like a secret weapon for Sony, where when you hit that button, you set it to a custom button, it actually throws all this gain out at your viewfinder or your monitor. You can set that in your custom keys in the Sony camera. And I usually set it to bright monitoring right next to my shutter. So it's either custom button 1 or 2, or on the Sony camera, the 3, it's on my record button. So I don't know, Rob, if you want to chime in about bright monitoring, how it's very unique to Sony. Yes or no, maybe not?
Actually, that's a good question. I don't know if anybody else is doing it, but it's definitely something that you have to have a camera with a locked open shutter type system. So mirrorless cameras are definitely ideal for it. But yeah, I mean, what you said earlier about it's just like sucking in all the light. It's just boosting all the gain at the moment that you tell it to, so that you can see what the hell you're doing. That's really all it's for. And then when you're done, hit the button and it goes back down to the proper lens diaphragm, the proper ISO setting that you were at previously. And then at that point, it's time to shoot. But yeah, it's a composition tool. It's great.
It's awesome. So yeah, so I'm just playing this video again. I can't fast forward. I just want you guys to see it. I mean, dude, it's so game changing to be able to compose your image in complete darkness, no matter where you are in the world, with no headlamp at all. You know, so you're gonna see right here. That's the screen without bright monitoring on. But I'm gonna hit the custom function button, and boom. You know, it's pretty.
Yeah, it
amazing.
turns into the daytime for the most part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, you can set that function on the custom keys tab. You can find it pretty much. When did bright monitoring start? With the what, A7R3? No.
I think. Gosh, I want to say the 7S2, but yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. So I mean, it's been around. So let's go back to I don't want to play the intro. Okay. So, all right, cool. So now we're jumping into the test shot. Okay. So this is typically a test shot. So that's Orion right there, with one single image. So typically my test shots are between it. I'm always kind of like an f2.8. Make sure you have that 2-second delay on, because if you have it on single shot or high frame rate, and you hit that shutter, you're gonna have, shake exactly, and you'll be like, why is my stars blurry? It's because you didn't have a 2-second delay. You would not believe how many students. I always say, in my class, I say, there's going to be one of you guys out there that are going to blow it because you don't set that 2-second delay. Astrophotography is all about slowing it down. People want to get the shots. I'm like, it's a very easy, technique, style of photography. It's just take your time. You know what I mean? So I typically go about a shutter 15 seconds and ISO 3200. Now, I am a fan of cooler tones, so my color balance is set to incandescent. So once I get that shot and I know, like, okay, that's the frame, that's what I want, then I kind of go through this checklist right here. So this is about, we're referring back to those long exposure shots. Now plug in the shutter release cable. So, as you can see on the bottom right there, it's basically a bulb. You're gonna hit that switch, and you're gonna let that thing run as long as you want. Always shoot in raw, uncompressed. I mean, especially for astro. I mean, you really utilize the dynamic range, especially in the shadows. Because if you shoot in compressed, it's a kind of a different photo. You can't really pull too much shadows out, right, Rob?
Yeah, well, it's getting better and better. It's definitely easier.
It is.
What you're talking about right now, though, relates back to a question that Cliff asked a little while ago. Do you have to experiment with your exposure? Yeah, you do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. So I wasn't going to get into this, but I might as well since we're on the topic. Okay, so everyone, I'm going to make this as easy as I can. So it's actually, I have a really nice blog about the 500 rule, right? It's a basic technique. It's on my website. It's a nice read. So if you guys are interested, check out my website on my blog section. So to answer your question about exposure time and how you prevent getting star trails, just to make this easy, there's an old basic rule called the 500 rule. So basically you take 500 and you divide that by your focal length of your lens. So if you're on a full frame and you have a 60 millimeter lens, Rob, that's going to equate to about 30.33333. There is none of that 33.333. You always round down. So most likely, if you're at 30 seconds with a 60 millimeter lens, you're going to have sharp stars. But this is the big but. This kind of referred back to film cameras. So with the A7S 1, 2, and 3, it's only 12 megapixels. You can totally stick to this rule and get sharp stars at 30 seconds, okay? But because of the amount of newer sensors that are coming out and there's more megapixels, right? We went from 12 to 24 to 42, now 62 with the A7R4. If you try to shoot 30 seconds with a 60 millimeter lens with a 62 megapixel camera, which is the A7R4, guess what? Your stars are going to be, they're not going to be sharp anymore. They're not going to be pinpoints. They're going to be trailing. It's because there's more detail in your image. So you have to have that. You have to take that in consideration. You might have to round back about 5 seconds or more. But some people, because if you're printing, say, big, Rob, like a big print, and if you're up on that, you're going to see the trails.
Squiggles.
Yep. So, yeah, exactly. So if you're into the squiggles, then hey, go for it. But if you're not, you have to kind of, play the game and play with that.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a little bit of an answer to what Roy was just asking here. Why do I want 12.9 megapixels over 25.3? That is definitely one reason. If you need low light capability, that's another one. If you want cleaner 4K video capabilities, it's another one. There are many different reasons. The less megapixels you have, the easier it is to record light and also to record video. Of course, the more megapixels you have, the better it is for blowing up. But there's so many, fist fights over that kind of a topic right there.
Yeah, and then you and me, Rob, talked about this like a couple weeks ago. And Roy, just to answer, kind of dive in a little bit more geeky. I have clients that I work with, and I was shooting with the R4, and they're like, Stan, dude, these files are too big, bro. Like, because I would send them like on my selects, and they can't even open it because they don't have the power computers I have because they're doing stuff for social media or making ads. And they're like, dude, like, can you kind of dumb it down? I'm like, what? So I actually, I'm kind of getting married to the S3 now, because I really do think this is the camera for me. Like, because the more and more I shoot with it, I'm starting to, I don't really need those megapixels anymore because I really, like you said, Rob, the video factor of it. I'm a 50-50. I need good video and good stills. And it makes you focus on getting it right in camera. Because now I am crazy hyper focused. Before, I'd be like, oh, the horizon's a tiny bit off, but I got 62 megapixels, big deal. But now I'm like, dude, I'm like just zenning in on everything more and more. And it's making me even better. You know what I mean? Like using the 16 to 35. Because the thing is, when you shoot a photo, you got to think ahead of the game. Like if you're going to shoot at 16 and you think, oh, this side and this side, there's too much empty space. I can fix it in post. But with the 12 megapixels, you really can't, because now you're stuck with like 8, So I'm using the 35 to zoom in and collect all that info and make it a really nice, rule of thirds and, image that's filled. So it makes you really appreciate photography even
there's
more.
a couple of things with that. In Merrick, so less megapixels equals larger pixels equals more light. As long as we keep the sensor size the same, the answer to that is yes. So from a 35 millimeter size full frame sensor, if we go from a 12 up and look at a 24, the answer to that is yes. But if we take it and go to a super 35 or an APS-C size sensor, then it changes the conversation. One other thing that I wanted to bring up, and David says that there are plenty of upsizing programs. Absolutely. You can definitely do that. You can upsize to a certain point. But one thing that is never brought up in this conversation that we deal with on pro side all the time, the more megapixels you have, the more attention you have to pay to the quality of your lens. This is why a lot of these like G Master lenses were developed, is because the industry was going to go many different ways. They were going to go to video. They were going to go to bigger pixels. If you are like kind of a camera historian, look at what brand C did with the first 50 megapixel camera. It pretty much died because there wasn't lenses available to support the clarity of the file. But that's a whole nother reason to be worried about things.
So the images would get soft. And man, like I was revisiting A7R photos, and then I would be like, wow, I shot this at 100 ISO, but it's kind of noisy. And then you look at the S3. So like I said, like Rob is saying, there's advantages to every camera. And that's the reason why Sony has this entire line. You have the A9, you have the A7S, you have the A7, A7C, which is kind of like my new favorite camera right here. I love this. The S, of course, is my number one. And I love this camera. It's amazing. So so let's get back to this. So I know we kind of exactly, right? So maybe it's good that we're not editing, man. Rick would have kicked us offline like a while ago. So let's drop back into this. So one exposure, 40-minute shot, right? Under the full moonlight. The checklist right here. After you got your test shot, plug in shutter release cable, shoot in raw uncompressed, F11, which is awesome because everything is in focus, right? ISO 100, set your bulb mode to 40-minute exposure. Of course, you can't set it on the camera, but you can set a timer on your phone, right? So once you hit that, you trigger up, that's the start of it. You can go longer than 40 minutes. It doesn't matter. But I'm just saying 40 minutes at the beginning of the conversation, that's like the most minimal time, in my opinion, is that, produces a nice start trail. So set the single shot, set to manual focus and color balance incandescent, and there you go. Rock and roll. So like I said, Astro is all about taking it slow. And, this was supposed to be the edit time, but that's all good. Take it to edit. But this is the image here with those settings that I just explained right there. And dude, it is such an awesome image. I actually shared this on Instagram. So if you guys want to see it on a bigger scale, check it out.
Stan, since we can't really do the edit, Alex here just asked a great question. I know that you were playing around with this here very recently. What do you think about phone photography at night? So, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well,
it's all over the place.
Yeah, so what's his name? Alex? Yeah. Oh, all right, cool. Yeah, so Alex, you probably know, I don't know if you know who Jason Vong is. He does a lot of Sony stuff, and me and him kind of collab on a lot of geeky videos. But we actually took out the brand new 12 Pro, Apple 12 Pro, and tested it out. Pretty crazy, man, like what those phones can do. I mean, it's not a full frame camera, but I kind of pulled off some pretty sick images. If you have it on your tripod, it's like 30 seconds now, and it locks on stars so fast. It's so quick to focus and lock on stars. I have the 11 Pro, and it doesn't lock that fast. It's actually kind of a pain in the butt. But that was one of the biggest things I noticed about that, you know, the new camera. And he's putting it together right now, so it's going to be pretty fun. Rob, we actually put it against the A7S III because the phone is 12 megapixels, the camera is 12 megapixels. Obviously, the S3 is going to win. But, you know, like everyone says, the best camera is the one you have, you know, with you, right? And that's the way it goes. Right? I know. I mean, that's the reason why I have this bad boy, the ZV-1, dude. This thing is insane. This is like I just love the flippy screen and all that stuff. Everybody knows that Sony has all the flippy screens now, but it's just an awesome camera. This is my BTS camera if I have to kind of pull it out, you know? So yeah, that is the image. So now we're going to get into flash photography. So pretty much, like I said at the beginning, it's all about surf for me and all about the stars, you know? So this image, I really freaking love. It's so awesome. I just got the Lux housing, the flash housing from Aquatech attached to my camera that morning. It's a funny story. My buddy Brian, right, that works here at Aquatech, we had shown up at the spot. We put the flash on, and the colors are starting to pop, Rob. I'm like losing my mind. We're like, oh my God, this is one of the best sunrises we've seen. And I haven't shot flash for a while. And I was just trying to remember all the settings in my head. And we had problems putting it on because we're in the dark. But it ended up being such an amazing photograph. So I'm kind of run through the settings to give you guys an idea. It's this guy right here. This is the Lux flash. And it comes with a Godox flash inside. We're gonna cover that. And of course, it's attached to my housing right here. It's my bad boy. This is the A7 Series 2 for the Sony cameras. So let's move on to this. All right, so we're gonna have to find this video. This is pretty rad. So this is actually behind the scenes video with the A7S III and the Lux flash housing. So so the shot that you seen was from this shoot. So let's go find that video. There it is right there. Sunrise is awesome. So that was that. I mean, what a morning, man. Such an epic
There is
morning.
a question from earlier, and I don't know. This is before I got logged on. John was asking.
Oh, okay.
He's saying that he also shoots with the same Aquatech. The new Lux flash for Sony, I believe, is on Aquatech's. What? Oh gosh, what is it?
It's on the website. Yeah.
There's no high-speed sync, and that's not available. Is that correct? Can you verify?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, you can only go up to 2/50th of a second. But like I said, I wish we could edit the photos here. But you don't really need to go that fast, you know, because the flash is freezing everything. So this is not the first and last day I was shooting with this, Rob. I fell in love with the flash. Like, I have so much stuff I need to share. It was a week straight. I was every morning, every evening, it was every day. I was going out with that thing. It's so freaking amazing. It's so creative to have that flash out there. And I started figuring out that, hey, I'm liking 1/25th of a second. You know what I mean? And I'm going to show you guys my entire setup and stuff. So just so you guys know, if you're inquiring about the A7S III with the housing, send them an email. They're more than welcome to help you out, because they have to kind of modify the camera plate because the A7S III is a little wider, right, Rob, than the A7R4. So the So the camera plate for the R4 had to be filed down a tiny bit, but I'm pretty sure Aquatech's gonna take care of that, very soon. And if you have concerns and stuff or are interested, they can probably modify a camera plate for you. So this is the gear I had for that shoot. A7S III, of course, the 24G Master f2.8, and the reason for that is this camera. I mean, this lens paired with the S3, Rob, in autofocus is insanely fast, even in the dark, dude. I don't know what you guys did with the autofocus system is insane.
It's the way that things are having to progress. Everything right now had to change because when we were shooting Canons and Nikons with DSLRs, there was a separate system within the camera that did all of that work. And then with mirrorless, part of making the camera small, that system went away. So Sony really pushed it fast, and then putting it into the larger sensors was the next challenge. That's where we refer to the hybrid focus, which starts focusing with phase detection and then continues tracking with contrast base. The 7S series never had that up until the 3. And then when that camera finally came along, we were able to build off of the speed of processing of the A9 series and the A9 II. So it's just the progression of the technology. Everything is going to change with that.
Yeah, it's like, you remember when that one day I called you and said, hey, dude, I think this is as fast as the A9 in uncompressed. You're like, I don't know about that. And then you did the test. And sure enough, it's 10 frames per second in uncompressed. And it is, I thought I had an A9 in my hand, and on top of that, I mean, who's going to do this? But you can hold the trigger down for 1,000 raw shots before it hits the buffer, right? I mean, I don't know who in the world would do that, but
people that are looking for a reason to put it on a forum. But there's something wrong with that. I love watching it. Yeah.
You can make a flip book time lapse or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just to move on, then of course I have the Aquatech A7 Series 2 water housing and my P100 port. I have different ports that I use. If I'm going to use a prime, I have a smaller port. And then I was playing around this morning with the 16 to 35. So that is the P130, and I have the gear control right here, so I can rack in and out with the 16 to 35. But typically, guys, I like to shoot with primes in the water. It's just a lighter setup, especially when you have the flash on there. And then of course I have the Lux flash housing. So that's what it looks like. Like I said, you have a Godox. The Lux includes a Godox TT685. It's specific to your camera. So if you order for Nikon, Canon, Sony, they have it dialed in. So here's the secret stuff right here. That's joking. But this is the back of the camera. Pretty much left to right. Of course, like I said, always shooting raw and compressed. Drive mode set to high plus. That way, you can get as much shots as you can if the flash can keep up with it. We're going to talk about that, about the flash power. We're going to get into that. Focus mode set, autofocus single. That way, I mean, you can be in continuous, but I rather, once I'm locked in, because the distance of a wave, when it's kind of like going in front of you, and if you're moving with the wave, it's the same distance. So if I'm locked on the lip, with the water housing, with the trigger right here, you can half press, and then the S3 goes boom. It's locking on, right on whatever target I'm on. And a lot of times I'll use the monitor. I'll have the monitor on, or the viewfinder, depending on the prime I use. If it's like a 135 G Master, then I use the viewfinder because it's too hard to compose with the monitor, So, but if it's a wider angle lens, like a 24, I'll have the monitor on. So focus area set to center fixed. Like I said, it's just easier for the camera to just, go, okay, this is the only spot I need to focus on. That way, that the middle of the frame is where it's going to lock on, instead of having your focus point to the left, the right. You can do that. Sometimes I do that if I am shooting over-unders in Hawaii, say per se, like a turtle, I'll have it where there's it's called flexible spot, where I'll have it on the bottom of the frame. So when I'm doing an over under, the S3 or whatever camera I have is focusing on the bottom. That makes sense. ISO, I've been finding it. Oh, are you locking in? There you go. Expandable flexible spot. Exactly. So I would be using that if I was doing over under shots, you know, or say like I was shooting somebody underwater, you know what I mean? That way, the camera's not focusing on, you know, the water line. You need to pull it, you know, to the bottom or to the top. So I found that ISO 400 with the flash kind of works perfectly for me. And then a meteor mode set to multi. And sometimes I use the average. Maybe you could chime in on that, Rob, the difference.
Yeah, so with multi and average, they're actually going to be really, really close. It's just that with multi, it likes to grab this area and keep it very much constrained to only what's happening here. And then this area, you know, it's kind of like, you know, everybody just watched the election. This state does what it does. And then this one does what it does. Okay, that's the only election talk I'm going to have. On the average, it's just basically going to take like a blanket all the way across and then figure out what it needs to do in order to make that come within the range. There's also going to be the highlight mode. That's one that I love, especially when you're starting to shoot something with a lot of real big mood and major amounts of highlights that are a huge player within your shot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to see the average has a little bit pull to the highlight side, I think. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of like, I don't know, I'm kind of bouncing between those here and there. So, but I would say mostly is the multi. And then we got flash mode set to rear sync. So basically what that does is when you shoot the photo, right? It's going to shoot, then it's going to flash. So it's going to stop that wave into action. You get that really cool like shadow effect to it. And there's the rear curtain and there's the front curtain. I like the rear better. It didn't sound good, but yeah, that's the sync I go for. Color balance. This is one of those things. I call it how I see it. You know, if it's daytime, if it's sunny, I set it to daylight. If it's cloudy, I set it to cloudy. You can always change this later, you know, especially if you're shooting raw. And then I'm always in shutter priority mode. So let's move along here. That's the setup right there. So this is probably one of the things that people ask me about flash. It always comes up, dude, is the power. The thing is, people try to overpower the photo like 1:1, and it blows it all out, right? You don't need that much flash to stop a wave in its tracks. You know what I mean? And the thing with the flash is, if you're at 1:1 or even a half, it's slower because it has to recharge. So you can't shoot that many photos at once. So I've been finding out that 1/8 is the best. And this is pretty much the image right here. Like if you look at the top of the wave, that's the rear sync. You can see that little shadow. I really dig that. How it just, you know, like I said, I was focusing. It was such a crazy day, but I'm focusing, looking at the monitor and watching the wave, you know, go right by me. And I would just hit that trigger halfway and to start firing. And then the flash, like you see in the video, would be popping, boom, 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 all the way down the line. And that's how you get that, you know, that nice look. And this was shot at 1/25 of a second at f5.6, like I said, at 400 ISO. So that is excluding the editing portion, but that's pretty much it. If we have any questions.
There was actually an editing question that came up. I don't remember who wrote it, but they were asking, do you use Capture One or have you used Capture One at all to do anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I love Capture One. I think it still is it pulls more for the Sony files. I mean, it can read more color, especially in the clouds. But because I'm such a big time lapser, I do a lot of time lapsing, Rob, as you know. That Lightroom and Photoshop works really quickly. You know, it's just and now with all the new updates that Lightroom came out with, they have a color grading. I was gonna get it all into that crazy stuff, but now it kind of looks like Capture One. It's kind of crazy. And now you can actually use your graphics processor card in Lightroom. It utilizes it, so it is fast. You know what I mean? But Lightroom, Photoshop is basically what I use. And then after I'm done editing Photoshop, I always sharpen and denoise with Topaz denoise. And so that's the sharpening tool I use. I live and die by that program. You know how we're talking about increasing the size of your file, like Gigapixel. Topaz Labs makes a program called Gigapixel, and I have a printer down south that he loves that program. So you can only go so far, but it does help. It's pretty remarkable what it can do. So that's my flow. It's Lightroom, Photoshop, Topaz, and then export.
Capture One was brought up a lot within Sony, and the main reason was, back in the day when Sony didn't have a huge amount of traction, it takes time for Adobe or even Apple to go ahead and get the information on the file and then update the editors. Capture One was one of the ones that pretty much had that relationship with Sony to do it right away. Now that Sony is definitely gaining a lot more ground within the industry, Lightroom, Photoshop, everything is definitely coming along faster. So for me, I started using Capture One, and I did the exact same thing. I moved over to the Adobe product just because I'm able to shoot that shot in the field, do a transfer over from the camera to my phone immediately. Take a look at it.
Lightroom
exactly. I could start it here and then finish it when I'm at home a day later, an hour later, or whenever. Everything syncs so well nowadays. It didn't used to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool because there's sometimes I go out on trips. Like I'll just have my SD card reader to my phone, and I'll back up images on Lightroom Mobile and do little edits there. And now it's in the cloud. You don't got to worry about it.
So the question pertinent to that is, after you have done a surf session, how much time are you usually spending on the edit?
Dude, I wish I could do it right now, but you'd be like, what? That's all you do? Like I used to edit so much, Rob, back in the day, and it's got so much easier. It's all basic stuff. You know what I mean? I think what happens is the more you learn how you like to create and your look, that your edit becomes a look, right? And then you kind of, you grow at programs, you grow at cameras, and you grow through life as being a photographer, filmmaker. And I kind of figured out my style and my look. So I edit. I probably take 20 minutes, if that. And I do, of course, get rid of things that are distracting. That's probably the most time I take is let's say that wave, had a lot of water spots all over the place. But I'll go into Photoshop and go to the spot removal or content aware and boom, 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 take all those out because one little speck on a photo can be so distracting, right? Anything, or even if you're looking at a photo, right, like a 3x2, and you have a tree branch that's just coming out into the frame, that's distracting for the viewer. So as you get better as a photographer, you start to see all these things. And then, like I said, with S3, because it's only got 12 megapixels, now I'm even honing in more on the sides. Before I'd be like, oh, I can crop that out, no problem. You know what I mean? But now it's just even more laser focused on the editing or actually capturing it in the camera.
Yeah, when I teach, and I teach a lot of photo classes from college level down through high school. And so Stan, that group that we took out to Joshua Tree, one of the things that I insisted on doing with them was we shoot everything leading up through the creative process in the small JPEG files, simply because I don't want them to have to rely on the computer. I don't want them to have the ability to rely on the computer. The camera can do an enormous amount of things, but most people get scared of the menus. Don't get scared of the menus because these tools are there to help you.
Yeah.
Then once you kind of learn that, it's kind of like learning how to tell time on the hands of a watch before getting a digital watch.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. But let's see, some other questions came up here. What is your go-to focal length in the shore break?
The shore break? I would say the 24. Yeah. The reason why I'd say 24, I see that right here. That was from Aaron. Because I'm always doing 50-50 split in the water. And that's why I like the A7S III now, because I know that the video I get out of that camera is going to be epic. It's 10 bits, 4K, 120. And I don't personally like wide focal lengths for video. I like cinematic. I like 24 or 35. Sometimes I'm I go through phases where I just have a 35 because I'm shooting, you know, photos and video. You know what I mean? And I just started liking that 35 because you know, it's very straight horizon, you know, and it's easy to fill the frame versus a wide angle, you know. So it's a different way of looking at things. And you know, so I definitely like, you know, 24, 35, 55, and 85. Those are probably like my faves, but I'm on the 35 kick right now. So you know, you get, and then, you know, you get tired of that and then move on to something different and you go back to it again. But I'm finding the 35 with the flash to look super awesome.
Question came up. Do you have a usable alternate housing for people that can't afford the Aquatech just yet?
Oh my God, I don't even know the names, to be honest. There's one called CMT, I think it's called CMT. They're pretty light.
CNC.
No, it's not. It's not
okay.
CNC. There's another one, something frog. Dude, trust me. The reason why I don't know is I don't need it. And the thing is, man, like I said before about the lenses, right? If you got a camera, first things you should do is get insurance for your camera, especially for surf, because trust me, I drowned it and it was user. It wasn't the this was a long time ago. It wasn't the housing.
Did you try to change your
Invest
lens?
in a proper housing.
Did you try to change your lens?
What was that?
No. Just go.
I didn't clip it on right. But it's like anything else. You know, if you gotta wait to buy the right one, just wait. You know, I've seen other people have these housings and they buy it and then they come back to me, Stan, like, you know, I drowned my housing, or this guy is taking forever to get me this button. You know, like, you know, it's something like maybe something, you know, got corroded or is not working right. A spring, you know, Aquatech is hands down the best. I mean, I know I'm a sponsored, you know, a brand ambassador, but they just are. Like, just spend the money and get the proper housing, and you're going to be stoked. And the people at Aquatech are awesome. I mean, they'll help you out. You can send stuff in. You can, you know, if you live local, you can go in there, and they're so friendly. Like, customer service is awesome. There is another company called Midicon that I used to tell people to grab from like Amazon and eBay a long time ago, but that's pushing your luck right there. It's like plastic housings, you know?
Let's see. William had a question actually for me earlier. Which Sony bodies have built-in intervalometer feature? Everything that has come out in the last year and a half to 2 years has it. Gosh, I'm actually going to fail at this. If my boss was here, he'd be highly disappointed. There's a middle ground of a couple of cameras that do not have it. Now, the thing is that people say that's where it stops. No, it doesn't. If we go way back to the earlier ones, Sony had a system called Play Memories Mobile that they abandoned for the most part with future development, but the system still exists. So you can take older cameras, you can download those, and then there's apps that you could then load into the camera that do all kinds of crazy fun stuff. And the intervalometer is one of them. So, you know, there's the answer to that. What kind of lens do you shoot from the shore for photo and video? That's all over the place, I know. Yeah.
Oh, dude. My favorite's been the G2 to 600. That's kind of my favorite. I use it for a lot of work too, client work. I mean, it's not as big as you would think it is, you know, but it's just so helpful. I'm actually getting the GM70 to 200 too, but I've been following a lot. I've shot so much stuff with a 2 to 6, man. Like every full moon cycle. I mean, if anybody follows my feed on Instagram or Facebook, every full moon you can almost put money on it that there's going to be a full moon shot with the 2 to 600. I just love shooting the full moon, and if I don't ever use that lens in a month, it's always used at least once. You know what I mean? But I shoot a lot of surf with it when it's big. It's like, you know, it's such a quick to focus lens, and just, you know, the focal length is amazing. It's awesome.
What's the perception on the 7C? That was an early question. I love it. It doesn't have all the buttons that the other cameras do, but that's only if you need all of the buttons. You know, it's small. It's aggressive as far as the focus and the imaging. Yeah.
Dude, it's amazing. I love this thing. So everyone's asking me, should I upgrade from the A7 III? Yeah, I would say yes, because you have the flippy screen, right? And then you have on the top here, because I do a lot of video, now you have 3 scenes. I believe the A7 III only had 2, but now you have 3, right? What else is new in this thing? There's a bunch of other stuff. There's the eye autofocus, right? But I would say I mean, I never really was a fan when the cameras got bigger, because I mean, I don't have the biggest hands, and it just brought me back to like the first A7S. You know, I was like, oh, this camera is amazing. Like, you guys sent it to me to try out. The only thing I had to get used to is the viewfinder, you know, because when you go from the S3 to this, you're like, what?
A little bit rough.
You know what I mean? But I got used to it, and dude, the image quality is amazing. I love it. I love it so much. This is, I mean, once you take this lens off, this thing is so tiny. I remember when I first got it, I kept on taking the lens off. I was like, God, I feel like there's a crop sensor in here, but it wasn't, you know? Yeah, I would highly recommend it. If you're looking into it, get it.
It's definitely a polarizing camera. You know, you go into the forums, people are arguing about it. Yeah, so it's a good system if you don't need all of the buttons all over the place. It's phenomenal. It's actually internally a better camera than the 7 III, in my opinion. And I work with
It is. Yeah, it's like, I don't need all that fluff, man. Like, I mean, photography is supposed to be fun, right? This camera actually makes it fun. You know, I remember going out to Mammoth with my wife Heidi. We were shooting fall colors. I was like, I couldn't stop, like, you know, telling her, I'm like, oh, babe, this is so fun to shoot with this camera. And it's just what you need, you know, figure it out. And there you go. You know, plug and play with that camera.
Since I got here late and I don't know, do we have to announce our photo contest winners before 3:30?
I think Rick was going to come in. There he is.
Hey, Rob, you're right on cue. Yeah. You're right on cue. Hey, guys, you're a really good duo.
Hey,
you know that, right?
As long as
you must work a lot of gigs together.
You do well, yeah.
I'm not Rob's favorite person at all.
Well, I got to tell you,
no,
you guys did really good. And what a wealth of information. Stan, your presentation was excellent. You teach us a lot. There are so many things to learn. And, you know, this is a great way for us to all come together and mingle and learn different techniques. And I'm sure our audience is probably all going to go, when's the next full moon? How do I get to that? Right? Where do I get that filter? How come I don't have that app?
Yeah,
well, I'm glad we could make it happen. I told you we would, and you know,
well, Stan, I call you a good wriggler, because I know we had some technical difficulties trying to show the video and everything. But you know what? You're smooth, and you did good. And I think the presentation was good. Hey, look, we have a photo contest which you folks have already selected a winning image, and I've got to tell you, let me bring it up. It's Ted Sato Ted Sato Ani. Sorry, Ted, I butchered your name. Can you, Stan, can you tell us what you saw in this? And then, Rob, if you tell him what he won, I think we're going to have a happy camper up there.
Actually, I don't know what he won. That's up between you and Joseph. So, Stan, go for it.
Well, Ted, if you call me, I'll tell you. But otherwise, I'm not going to tell everybody else, because they'll know you got one, man.
Well, I bet. No matter what, Ted's stoked, because Sony.
Absolutely. Stan, tell us a little bit about how come you and Rob picked this image out of all of them.
It was so funny, because I looked through all of them. It took me a while. There's a lot of great images, and you know, a photograph is storytelling, right? You know, and the better I get at being a photographer, and I still got a lot to learn. You know, you start to hone in on storytelling more. That's what it's all about. It's about storytelling, and I think this image was the most powerful, like it was the most powerful photo, married to the theme of the
pandemic.
And it's just awesome, because it's kind of, I think he called it wishing, and it's just really cool, especially with the black and white play where he's got the mask on, and I told Rob this, and he's like, dude, that's the one I wanted. You know what I mean? And I think I sent you, I don't know the actual quote, but it's like, he's trying to keep everyone safe, and he's keeping himself safe, but with the mask on, and he's just hoping for that day that everything is going to be okay.
Yeah.
And the rad thing is, when you look into his eyes, you see the reflection of the palm trees and Hawaii outside.
Hey, good
So
eye. Good eye.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and like I said, and what happens is, because of the focal length that he used, and you go straight to his glasses.
Yeah.
So it really tells a story in 2 seconds. I mean,
Good. Yeah.
you know what I mean? And that's
Well,
basically, I mean, good job, Ted.
Yeah, good job, Ted. Hey, folks, we want to thank you. Thank you, Sony, for bringing us this wealth of information. Stan, you were epic. You just
Thanks, man.
moved right through there. I certainly, as a photographer, I always pick up things from you, Stan, so you did real good. Rob, your technical skill with the equipment is what we needed, and it was a great compliment for today. So, folks, all of you, we've got a couple more workshops today and several tomorrow. Please know that you can go into those and register today and still attend them. And remember, Photocon Hawaii Virtual is free this year. And please enjoy it and kick back and maybe invite a friend to join you, even if it is virtual. So Stan, Rob, we thank you, and aloha.
Aloha,
Take care,
everybody.
guys.
Thank you.
Take care.
Later.
Thank you.